Welcome to the Jiu Jitsu Oracle. UFC BJJ is back, and so are we. I'm Ross. That's Calum. There's a show on Thursday night in the US. That's going to be the wee small hours of Friday UK time that we're going to preview now and then hopefully be able to review on Friday for you. So, those of you that are watching on YouTube or Spotify, you will see the card on your screen. Those of you that are listening along, we will run through the card and let you know our thoughts on each match. So, first off, Calum, let's talk about the card itself and how it's comprised and who's on it. What do you make of it as an offering from UFC BJJ?
It's okay.
It's okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I think the way it's organized is interesting because the match that's the main event, Mason Fowler against Pedro Machado, it's for a light heavyweight championship. So I understand why they've put that as the headliner. But to me, it's not screaming out headline match. Is that fair?
yeah, I think it's the same as the last card where you can argue, obviously Mikey's a big name, but comparing like the co-main event, which was Tarek and Ronaldo, who are obviously two well-accomplished practitioners, but then you had Meregali, who aside from Mikey was by far the biggest star on the card, and he was a match below them or a match or two below them. I think obviously the Tarek match was a title as well, so that seems to be how they're going for things. But interesting, like, who they're giving the title matches to as well. Like I said to you before the recording, I think for star power and just good matchups, it would have made more sense to me to swap Pedro Machado and Elder Cruz. So you would have Nicky Rod versus Mason in the main event, two big names for the light heavyweight championship. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then Pedro, I think he's only recently started competing in Nogi. He had one UFC BJJ match last time that he won. But apart from that, he's like a semi-big name in the gi. Like he's not won worlds or anything. He's medaled a couple times. So not the biggest star. Him versus Elder seems like a decent matchup, and then saves Nicky Rod and Mason for the main event. I think that would have made more sense. I think there's a few things to do with the UFC matchmaking that don't make a ton of sense. I don't know who is completely responsible for it. I know Claudia Gadelia has a lot of sway with things. She was obviously a UFC fighter, so I don't know how much of a fan of the current UFC, or no, sorry, the current grappling kind of scene she is, or whether she's just kind of picking who she thinks might make sense in her own mind. I don't really know, but things don't make too much sense to me as far as how they're doing the matchmaking, to be honest.
Okay, so get into the comments, guys, and let us know what you think of the card and UFC BJJ's, what we'll call, because I'm a pro wrestling fan, booking in general. But I agree. I think like Mason Fowler against Nicky Rod, you get two really big names within the Nogi grappling scene. Maybe that's for the light heavyweight title. Maybe it's for the heavyweight title. It doesn't really matter. I'm not that bothered that matches are for belts. But I know with UFC and UFC BJJ, belts seem to matter a lot. And then you could do Pedro Machado against Elder Cruz at light heavyweight or heavyweight. And I agree. I think that would make for a more interesting main event. And then you have the sub main event or the sub main event, because I think Theon Davis against Kasimura is like an interesting match that we'll come to. And that's a fine co-main event or match that's just sitting below Mason Fowler against Pedro Machado. But let's talk about the matches themselves. So give us your thoughts on the card. As for the main event, which way are you leaning? I know way more about Mason than I do Pedro. Are you in the same boat?
Yeah, definitely. So I just did a bit of research before we recorded. I watched his last match on UFC BJJ, won by arm triangle in the second round. First round was quite even with him and his opponent. Like I say, he's only recently switched over to no-gi. He's got some accolades in the gi, black belt, and won some stuff at colored belt. Mason's got a pretty good career in the gi previously as well, even though that's not really what he does now. But as far as no gi like accomplishments, name value, and everything, Mason is definitely way ahead of Pedro. So I do see him being fairly dominant in this match, I think.
Good. I agree. I think Mason should win. Good to see him back. I think he might have been injured for a little while, because he was kind of missing from the scene for a bit. So good to have someone of his stature and ability back in amongst it. Fionn Davis against Kasiyamura is a really interesting match to me. Both very, very good guard passers. So I want to see who gets on top in the match. I would favour Fionn's stand-up more than Cassia's. So I don't know if Cassia will try and play from the bottom and sweep to top. I think it will be tough to sweep Fionn, so could be a case of like whoever is able to establish and maintain top position in this match will get the win. Also be interesting in the UFC setup that they're in a rounds-based format, so there will be breaks and then resets and then back on the feet. So does Cassia decide to stand up with Fionn, or will she pull guard and try and get top that way? But I think like whoever's on top will win, and it'll be interesting to see if either of them are able to score a guard pass on the other grappler, because both are very good at passing guard. Have you got anything else to add to this match, Calum?
Yeah, Cassia's been more active. She did the crown last year. She won Nogi Worlds towards the end of last year, won Euros in the gi just passed. So more active, but I think when you're going up against like one of the very best, if not best in the world, you need to, obviously you've got an opportunity to show you're on that level, but I don't think she's, with her resume, quite showing that she is likely to kind of dethrone Fionn. So we'll see how she does in the match. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of experience and achievement with Fionn, and then Cassia's been more active, so we'll see if that plays in her favor, but it's going to be a tough task for her, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Cassia might be in this position where you've kind of got the top female no-gi grapplers right now are Fionn, Adele, Helena, etc. I think Sarah Galvao's kind of now got herself into that mix. And is Cassia the next young female grappler who can get in there and make for like I don't know quite if there's a big 4, big 5, or big 6 in the female grappling scene around about that weight. I'm not going to include people like Gabi Pisania, but yeah, I think it's a big test for Cassia, and it's one if she passes, she's firmly in the mix with those guys at the top of the female scene, and then we can see like a lot of interesting matches get made in the future involving these guys. What about Nicky Rod against Elder Cruz, which we mentioned before? Now, when we had a quick pre-chat before recording, I said, man, you got to favour Nicky Rod here, right? And you right away said, yeah, but Elder beat him last time. And I have no recollection of that happening. So do you want to enlighten me and any viewers or listeners who are not aware of that, Calum?
Yeah, so when I said last time, they've had a match in 2022, so I don't know if they've competed again since then. They haven't, as far as my recollection. But yeah, they had a match on Who's Number One back in 2022, and Elder won a decision, I believe. It was one of the first times I think we saw Nicky Rod against like another good wrestler, because that's Elder's kind of game. And Nicky Rod really struggled in that department, which is quite interesting, I think, because we've later seen guys like William Tackett, who used to be a guard player, has only recently worked on his wrestling. First time he faced Elder, he was kind of forced to pull guard, and you lost the match. Elder's passing pressure was too much, and then he really worked on his wrestling, more of like a recent thing, and as a much lighter guy than Nicky Rod, and he actually out-wrestled Elder Cruz. So I think that's really interesting. Whether we'll see, Nicky try to out-wrestle him this time or not will be one thing to see, but I also think we've got a lot more evidence to show that Nicky Rod doesn't always have to be the best wrestler. in his matches to win now. You know, we've seen that against him versus Owen Livesey and him versus Brandon Reed at CGI. He's got the tools to pull guard and either, you know, not necessarily play a super traditional jiu-jitsu guard game, but like use his wrestling within the guard so he doesn't necessarily have to set up his takedowns with a hand fight and stuff. I think, you know, the big advantage wrestlers have is just their skill in the hand fight. When you actually lock like your arms around someone in a double leg, even if someone's a much better wrestler, when you get that deep on a shot with someone, especially if you're big and explosive and athletic, you're likely going to take them down anyway. The difficulty is like getting past that range, getting past the hand fight with someone that's a better wrestler than you. So his ability to pull guard and kind of bait that deeper shot where he can get his hands locked around someone and then just drive them across the mat. You know, he's showing that he's able to do that now. So be interesting to see. I think probably we will see some stand up, whether we'll see one of them take the other down or not. We'll see as that progresses, but I think if it's not going Nicky's way, he'll be quite happy to play guard. So long story short, I would still favor Nicky in this match, even though Elder won the last one. I think he's just showing more versatility as of late, especially dealing with guys that are good in the rest. And then I think on the ground, he's got a big advantage with his passing and his back control and everything else.
I think the bowl will favor Nicky as well.
Yeah.
Because his wrestling can be quite explosive. And if it's just a matted area, can result in going out of bounds. And then if someone's being defensive and playing towards the mat edge, it can be tough to take them down. I think it's fair to say some of Elder's matches in the past haven't been the most exciting, and he can be a bit defensive at times. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, I think the having a matted area with walls around it, with barriers, with a bowl shape, that'll favour Nicky. Like, he can really go for it, and Elder's going to find it hard to skirt away from that. So, yeah, I'd say I agree on your assessment that wrestling up should help Nicky, and I also think the environment they're grappling in should help Nicky. So we're looking for Nicky Rod to win. Like, that then becomes interesting to me, Calum. Like we said before, what about Mason against Nicky? Is this like then setting up if Mason wins the main event and Nicky Rod has a good showing in his match, maybe that is a match to make in the future? Maybe they're looking for that.
Like, well, I'm presuming we're gonna make an assumption that Mason's going to win his match, and then he's obviously got that light heavyweight title occupied, but he's not like the biggest name that they've got signed it that way, not even the second biggest name, because we saw Meregali compete for them last time. So you would think it would be, you know, Nicky Rod versus Meregali, these two that have been two of the biggest names in the last few years and have actually never competed against each other. These two are on like a collision course, but at the same time, like 205 pounds would be their weight unless they do a heavyweight belt as well, which they're more than capable of competing at that weight too. I guess like if Nicky wins this match, they could make a heavyweight title between those two. I don't know if they've got a heavyweight champion at the moment, do they?
Don't
Not that I
think
can
so.
think
It
of it.
doesn't ring a
So
bell.
maybe that's the way they're going to go about it, and then maybe like the winner of that that holds the heavyweight title can have a super fight with Mason. Some ideas for you, UFC BJJ, so we don't end up seeing Meregali versus some guy we've never heard of in the next event. Hopefully that's kind of what they're building towards.
Yeah, I'd take Mason against Meregali as well.
Yeah.
Any of those matches between those three would be fun. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see out of Nicky Rod, Meregali, Mason, and is there anyone else who's associated with UFC BJJ at the upper weights that we are not mentioning that you could throw in as well, make for some interesting, exciting matches. Also in Nicky Rod, I think it's interesting that he is on a UFC BJJ card that given Craig Jones's views on UFC BJJ, which he's put out there. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but I think it would be fair that Craig's not the biggest fan of UFC BJJ. And then Craig and Nicky were on the same team when it was B team. Craig's stepped away. Now it's Simpleman. you know, has that influenced like Nicky not or some of the B team guys now being away doing their thing with the Simpleman? Will we see more of those guys now willing to do UFC BJJ? But I just think it's interesting that Nicky's signed up, you know, someone who's been like a firm part of CJI, which is a alternative promotion to UFC BJJ, and now he's joining the ranks of UFC BJJ.
I do think it's interesting to think about the perspectives of some of the grapplers that have signed up with UFC BJJ, like we were speaking about before we recorded the post-fight interview of Ethan Trellinston, how I said kind of makes sense for him, I think, to join UFC BJJ just with where he is in his career. And like the unit from Nicky Rod's lens, I remember him saying back in the day, like, oh, he really wants to like get double gold at ADCC and all the rest. And obviously he's won a CGI, which is kind of like up there with ADCC. He's won a second one. He's made $1.2 million from the CGI events. He's got a kid now. So like you can kind of see from his perspective with the name value he's already got, the achievements he's made. I don't know what his contract is, but if he's getting like hundreds of thousands of dollars per match, it kind of makes sense from his perspective. You can kind of see to do that. And I think the same with Fionn. She's spoken a lot recently about like, she obviously won GI Worlds and ADCC Worlds, but now she's at the point where she's kind of considering like, why would I be doing those tournaments for free when like I can fight all of these girls on an event and make 20K from it? So I think it's interesting to see what grapplers are going over and like considering their circumstances in their career and why they might decide to do that.
Yeah, and for us watching on, the scene's in a real kind of state of flux just now. Who goes to UFC? What restrictions are then placed on them grappling at other events? CGI 3, we're waiting to hear like what the date of that is and what the format of that is. We've got one fighting championships still putting on grappling matches on their cards. We'll talk about a really interesting match that's away to happen. Tye Ruotolo against Pawel Jaworski. Who goes there? Again, what restrictions are placed on that? Who's gonna do ADCC this year? Who's gonna accept an invite? Who's winning trials? It's like it's all kind of like up in the air a little bit still, you know. As it is, we'll just review and preview the shows that are presented to us. And yeah, I just thought Nicky being on this show, it's a chance to have a bit more of a chat about like the grappling scene as it is and who's where and whether it's a good thing or whether it's not a good thing. Again, get into the comments and let us know what your thoughts are. Right, Calum, before we talk about the aforementioned Tye v Pawel, and we're going to do a quick update on what happened at Polaris in the UK last weekend, let's just run through the rest of the card. I'm going to talk about the matches and then I want you to come in at the end and just give us any thoughts on what you're interested in seeing. Meyran Monique, as always, a potential highlight reel, easy for me to say. So I'm looking forward to seeing him against Marco Mendes. I think Ana Rodriguez against Jasmine Rocha could be a real barn burner, both being very active, willing to push the pace. Devontae Johnson, again, highlight potential there, up against Lucas Nurat. Did you see Formiga against Xiao Miao? Interesting that they've gone out and got Xiao Miao, because like I've pretty much only see him these days competing in IBJJF Masters divisions here and there. So he's going against Jussier Formiga. And then at the end, at the bottom of the screen there, Manuel Ribamar against Cao Vinicius. Probably the match I know least about, so if you've got anything to add to it, that would be cool. But what out of that, like, rest of the card matches are you looking forward to seeing?
Looking forward to seeing Meyran. He has been doing a lot more no-gi recently. He's looked amazing in some performances and not quite as good in others. So I don't know if he's maybe still kind of finding his game a little bit, making those adjustments from gi to no-gi, and then his opponent. made more of a name for himself recently. He won Nogi Worlds towards the end of last year. In the semi-finals, he beat Ash Williams. In the finals, he beat Gianni Grippo. So he's definitely going to be a good match for Mayram in that. So we're looking forward to seeing that. Anna versus Jasmine. I think they had a match at Brazilian Trials last ADCC cycle, and I think Anna won that. So Jasmine's obviously quite young. I'm sure she's making a lot of advancements in her game at that age. So be interesting to see how that shakes up in the rematch. Truthfully, don't know much about Devontae's opponent, so I can't comment too much on that. Really looking forward to seeing Jar Miao. He's like an absolute legend of the last generation, so I don't know if some of the newer guys to the sport don't really know too much about him, but yeah, just like a absolute legend from the last generation. You know, amazing Berimbolos. More recently, put a lot of time into Barato Platas and developing that part of his game. With the advancements in like leg locks and straight foot locks, for the sake of Xiao and his health, I don't want to see it, but like out of curiosity, I'd be really interested to see him against like someone that's really good at foot locks now, because him and his brother back in the day just used to eat every and all leg locks, including heel hooks and knee bars. There's that famous photo of Paolo versus Tye ADCC, and Paolo's knee is just like beyond hyperextended. But you know, I think I was having a conversation with someone about this the other day. I think before like maybe 2020, ankle locks almost used to be seen as like, oh, you can like eat an ankle lock a bit, it's fine. And I remember speaking about like Ellis Younger, who's one of the top guys in the UK, saying like he used to always eat ankle locks, and then he thought maybe his ankles were becoming stiffer or something, but then realized like the game has just moved on so much as far as finishing mechanics. So be interesting to see. I don't think they would tap just because like they've been in horrific leg locks, but like a really modern leg locker that's really good at ankle locks and stuff, how that would go. But I do think they would just eat it just because they're absolutely mental. But yeah. Anyway, it'll be good to see Zhao back in action in that match. And I think his opponent is, you know, multiple time winner of IBJJF majors, and also a pretty accomplished UFC fighter, I think, as well. So that'll be a good match to watch.
Are we thinking Zhao versus Mikey might go the same way as Mikey against that Sambo guy who didn't tap?
Yeah, I think they've probably competed before. He's definitely competed against some of them, and I think Mikey won. But I think it was Mikey's first major as a black belt. It was Nogi Worlds back in like 2016 or something like that. And I can't remember if it was Pao or Zhao, but he definitely had them in some nasty looking ankle locks, and they just had their poker face on, completely unfazed.
Just ate it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about another big match that's happening this week that I think's kind of flown under the radar a little bit, but it's two of the best guys in the world right now going up against each other. Tye Ruotolo against Pawel Jaworski. I believe in the UK, there is a live broadcast on Sky Sports. I think in the rest of the world, you're going to be able to watch it on Amazon Prime. So like definitely do your research in how you can watch it in your area of the world, because I think if you're a grappling fan, this is an awesome match. What are your thoughts on the match, Calum?
Yeah, definitely see good to see them put on like a match that makes sense like this. You've got Ty, who's like the well-established guy who's won multiple things over the past 5 years, and then Pavel, who's just been on an absolute tear the last year or so. And a really fun match from a stylistic point of view. We kind of know what we're going to get. It's not like, oh, is one guy going to rest? Is one guy going to do this? Pavel's going to pull guard. Ty's going to be doing his outside pass in, being really nasty and aggressive on top. And Pavel's going to be looking to retain guard and get into the leg. So we know what we're going to see. There's no surprise for that, but like everyone knows what we're going to see and wants to see it, I think. So makes perfect sense. I think Ty's surely going to be the favourite, just given everything he's done in the last 5 years, all his accomplishments. But I think Pawel is definitely a very dangerous opponent for him and is more than capable of winning the match.
Yeah. Can Pavel false reap Tye? Can Pavel build on an amazing last year and then make that step into the guys at the very top? of the sport. The guys, when a CGI comes round and it's all the best welterweight guys, say, in a 16-man bracket, can Pawel put himself in that group that would be among the favourites, where the likes of Tye or Andrew Tackett would be?
Well, this is exactly what we were speaking about, I believe, when we gave Pawel the Grappler of the Year last year. Just off of like his activity and his achievements, he won like every no-gi major, did every like super fight show that he could. But I think the one criticism we had was like he's been on a tear, but none of them have been like the elite guys, and that was to no fault of his own because that was his breakout year, you know, so he wasn't really in a position to be offered those matches. But we're seeing it now. We're seeing the fruits of his labor from all the competitions he did last year. So this is really interesting now to see that step up a competition and how he does against that caliber.
Yep. And do you want to give us some thoughts on Polaris that happened in the UK last weekend? Yes, you
Yeah,
do.
so
As you get your screen, there we go.
yeah, it was a good card. Didn't really catch any of the prelims, mostly just the main card. So the two I was most looking forward to were the featherweight and lightweight title matches, Owen versus Yanni. Was quite intrigued going into that. Saw Owen give a really good start to the match, came out really strong, very dominant in the first round with his wrestling and his pass attempts, and then kind of saw him fade towards the middle in the end, and then Johnny started to pick it up. So it looks like Johnny wanted to play on top the whole match, but Owen definitely had the better wrestling. But he did get on top later in the match, able to put on some good pressure passing. But with what Owen was able to do in the first and the second round, it wasn't really enough at that point. But Owen had some really cool moments as well, some really cool takedowns, as well as a really nice armbar that was like off of a stack that looked super close. That was really cool to see. So yeah, ended up being a good match overall. Some good cornering from Owen's side, from Owen O'Flanagan, which was quite funny. If you know some of the lore with Gianni's life in the last year, then you'll understand who he was imitating. But yeah, good match anyway. And I was looking forward to the main event as well with Ethan Crownston and Shai Guerrera. Shai's a guy that I am studying at the moment. He's got a really good leg lock game. He is the top guy in the world at my weight class, which is brown belt lightweight, so I'm keeping a close eye on him. Wish the match had gone a little bit further, because like usually when you're studying someone, you just want to see as much material on them as possible when they're competing. Big step up in competition for him. Obviously, he's had a lot of success in the IBJJF majors, but Ethan Krallenstein's one of the best guys in the world, so wasn't able to make it out of the first round, but it was a very good match to watch while it went on. And then Ethan's post-match interview had some talking points as well. Basically, he asked to be signed to the UFC BJJ promotion while giving his post-match interview on Polaris, which is interesting because he's had a like 5+ year relationship with Polaris. He's fought for titles multiple times. Obviously, they're title holder, and I think all the other promotions aren't the biggest fan of UFC BJJ at the moment, given the resources they have as far as money and the exclusive contracts. So I think that pissed off Polaris quite a bit, and it was quite a entertaining thing to watch and a lot of talking points. So I thought I would bring that up as well.
Okay. And shout out Ross Mickles, a friend of ours, a friend of our gym, SBG Aberdeen. I watched his match and was really impressed. Love his guard game. Really like interesting attacks. Wasn't able to get the submission, but yeah, definitely worth watching. He's got an exciting style and a proper like veteran of the UK grappling scene, and great to still see him out there on top cards. And if you like watching exciting guard play, I think Ross is a good guy to watch. So if you've not seen the match, definitely check it out. Anything else you want to mention on the grappling scene, on the grappling front?
Not that I can think of, to be honest. I think we've
Good. That's fine,
covered
because
it.
yeah, we'll just come back. We'll watch UFC BJJ, I think Friday morning UK time. And then hopefully we'll come back with a review and give you some thoughts on the card. And then, you know, we're going to try and keep the Jiu Jitsu Oracle ball rolling all the way to ADCC and hopefully CGI 3. I think this summer could be a big, exciting one for grappling again. But we're just looking for some, you know, interesting shows to keep it going until we get there. And I think this UFC BJJ show this week and the one match between Tye and Pawel will, you know, provide plenty of excitement. But we shall see, and we'll be back soon to let you know.